Welcome to the Southern State of Golf podcast. Hi, I'm your host, John, and today we're excited to be joined by John Morton. John is a golf history enthusiast. He's a vintage memorabilia collector and founder of the Old Gray Tune Golf Books, and we're excited to have him join us today. John, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, John.
Well, I only butchered your company's name a little bit, and we talked about it beforehand. So why don't you give us a little background about your company that you founded and a little bit about you?
Yeah, I appreciate it, and don't feel bad. Most people kind of second guess themselves as they're trying to pronounce Old Gray Tune is the more kind of more the easier way to say it, if you will. So yeah, founded Old Gray Tune Golf Books. It's a unique spelling, which is what catches everybody. It's spelled in an old Scottish kind of spelling way, but I founded it kind of in honor of St. Andrews, which is commonly known over in Scotland as the Old Gray Tune. And I've been playing golf for about 30 years now. I used to be a club professional, but left the golf industry from a club professional standpoint about a decade ago for a different career path. But I've stuck with the game ever since, not just as a hobby to play for my wife and I, because she plays as well, but more so from the historical standpoint. Since leaving the game as a club professional, I've really embraced and really gone just full on into the history of the game and embracing the history of the game and sharing the stories of the history of the game. And that's for anybody that follows me on social media, whether it's Twitter or X or Instagram or Facebook. You see a lot of what I share most of what I share is about golf history, whether it's photos, stories, whatever it might be. Sharing the history of the game has become my passion over the last decade. And about a little over a year ago, I founded Old Gray Tune Golf Books in partnership with and kind of in assistance with a number of authors overseas. What I found over time, over the years, was that authors in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, just everywhere else in the world have had such a difficult time getting their books access to the US market, access for us Americans to be able to purchase their books without astronomical shipping costs.
Mhm.
In many cases, I purchased a book from an author overseas and I paid as much, if not more, for the shipping as I did for the book. So it was a major deterrent. So I've gotten to know a number of historians and authors overseas, in particular in England and Scotland in the last couple of years. And I founded Old Gray Tune basically as a book distributor, to where I'm importing those books from overseas and I can be that US distribution for them to be able to help promote their work, their life's work, to help share the history of the game. They have a lot of the same passion that I do when it comes to sharing the history of the game. So by extension, I can help them achieve their goal while, you know, entertaining my own hobby at the same time.
Well, I encourage people to go check you out on X. You're a great follow at John Morton 215. That's a great place. One of the things I just recently saw, you had several dozen books recently, copies of Rory Headed Out. That's a book that I know your company's putting out there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yeah, so again, Old Gray Tune's been around for a little over a year now, almost a year and a half. Started with a number of authors overseas, but more recently, I've started to work with a couple different authors here in the U.S. From Stephen Proctor, who's written several books on the history of the game, to most recently Alan Shipnuck, very noted writer, golf writer for over 30 years now. Author of 10 books now on the game of golf, including titles like Live and Let Die, as well as the very famous biography on Phil Mickelson. And most recently, as of next Tuesday, his latest book, Rory, is about to be released, the first true biography on Rory McIlroy. And appropriate timing, great timing with it being the 1 year anniversary of Rory completing not just winning the Masters, but completing the career Grand Slam. So been really exciting as the initial stock has arrived this week, and I've been able to start getting everybody that's pre-ordered it to fulfill those orders and get those shipped out.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on here today. We're also excited. I should have mentioned this, right off the top. You're going to be a future co-host with the Best Ball family on That's Good, Pick It Up. So we're excited to have you a part of the Best Ball family coming up soon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really excited to join Nate and all of you guys within the Best Ball family, but be able to join Nate on the That's Good Pick It Up show, and be able to dive into even more golf books, both modern and historical. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to working with you guys.
Well, it's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on because it's Masters time. It's April here in the South. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I can almost smell the pimento cheese and the egg salad and all that good stuff. That's why we wanted to have you on and talk a little Masters history. Because I love the pictures that you share on X of the Augusta National back in the day. It still blows my mind. I think someone commented on one of your posts that one of your older pictures, Augusta National looks like the Muni down the street in one of the old pictures. You know, what is your first memory of Augusta National?
My so my first memory of Augusta National, n- where I haven't attended, and I'll say that kind of tongue in cheek, realizing that I've been very fortunate, very blessed to attend the Masters quite a few times when I was a PGA professional. But my first memory not attending, that I can very, very vividly remember as a child was, I was a teenager at the time. I was 17, but specifically in 2004 when Phil Mickelson won the Masters and won his first major. For me, growing up, I'm a left-handed golfer, so Phil was my idol growing up. I tried to imitate a lot of what he did, and being able to see him achieve his dreams and finally win that major, albeit a year after we saw. In my lifetime, my first left-handed golfer, Mike Weir, win the Masters. But seeing Phil win the Masters, I can still remember, I can still pinpoint the exact square foot that I was sitting on a couch in my uncle's house that Sunday with my family, as we watched the final round, just for just like a family gathering or something, not even Masters related, but my dad and I were sitting on the couch watching it. I will remember that exact moment until the day I die. So that was the earliest memory um, from a non-attended standpoint.
Tell us what do you think makes the Masters what it is today? Like, I think it's amazing that you can argue it is the biggest. You put it right up there with the Super Bowl in terms of importance for people and a sporting event in our country, if not the world. Why do you think it's so big?
It's a combination of a number of things. Most notably, I feel like everybody says it's tradition, and that is the truth at a 40,000 foot level. If you need to put it into one word, it's tradition. But to expand on that a little bit, in my opinion, it's the continued growth and the continued just step by step, year after year, kind of perfect blend of traditions expanding, from 1 year to another. You noted that, over the last few days and being a golf history enthusiast, I tend to focus on the earlier years in the history of the game, 1700s, 1800s, and early 1900s, kind of pre-World War II. But when it comes to the Masters, there's only a few years that were before World War II. So I tend to focus kind of pre 1960 to 1970. Black and white photos is the easy way to think about it. But when I look at the early years of Augusta National and the earliest photos, you can see a pretty clear progression of the tournament just evolving naturally and growing very naturally year by year. And part of that was the allure of Bobby Jones, but it was just a natural progression. It started with, like-minded golf professionals, or professional golfers at the time, coming to play, for Bobby and, in his tournament. But after the first 5 to 10 years, I feel like when you look at photos from the 40s, 50s, and 60s of the Masters, you see the evolution of the tournament itself. Today, in particular, I shared a pair of photos from the 1954 Masters when Gene Sarazen gave a clinic at the driving range for a couple thousand people. And while that doesn't happen today, you can see the crowd size of that picture versus 10 years earlier in 1946, the first year after World War II, versus 10 years before that. The crowds grew exponentially, little by little over time. The traditions grew little by little over time. And I think the way that the Masters and Augusta National has very carefully curated those traditions and kept those within their own control and their own grasp, they've been able to kind of build this up to where you can't manufacture the traditions that they've built up over the decades. It's such a special mixture, such a special cocktail of traditions that it can't be replicated anywhere else.
What's your favorite tradition?
Oh, my favorite tradition has to do with the Masters has to do with attending it, and specifically what I think about, and again, I've been very fortunate to go a number of times. I went from 2012 to 2017, at least one day each of those years, and then I'll be going again next week. I was able to regain my PGA membership last year with what I'm doing with Old Gray Tune, so I'll be going again next week. But every time you go to the Masters, you observe a courtesy that you don't find anywhere else in the world, and that courtesy involves chairs. And my favorite thing about the Masters specifically involves all of the just seated chairs that are placed by patrons around every tee box and every green on the golf course. You place your business card in the back of it, you put it down, you can leave that chair there all day and come back to it anytime. Nobody's going to move it. Nobody's going to touch it. Even if somebody's sitting in it when you get back, they politely get up and they'll walk out. And that chair, that space that you found at the beginning of the day is yours. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that courtesy, the manners, that kind of come from that type of just simple practice. And when it comes to the Masters, as everybody knows that's ever been there, uh, location is key, and the finding the perfect spot to sit throughout a day at the Masters is so key to the best feelings that you can and best memories that you can garner from it. So being able to place that chair wherever you want and knowing you're going to come back and you can sit back down there at any point that day, it just nothing beats that tradition.
I mean, I just heard just recently, I mean, I knew about the tradition of sitting a chair down, but I did not realize someone told me that you could anybody can sit in that chair if they're not sitting in it, but when the guy comes back, you get up.
Yeah, you just get up and, oh, thanks so much. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the tournament.
I don't think I would ever sit in anybody else's chair if they weren't there, but to realize that that is part of the tradition, I think that that makes that even cooler. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
I
absolutely.
I will say I had one my small quick story about an Augusta National chair when I went back in 2016. We got a chair when I was there. I left. I loved the chair. My car broke down and it totally went kaput on me. And so I had to get rid of the car was totaled. Had to sell the car. It wasn't but like months later that I found out my Augusta National chair was stuck in that car somewhere. And so I lost
Oh.
I'm not disappointed about the car. I'm disappointed that I lost my
The
Augusta
share.
National chair. And that's the thing that bothered me about the whole thing. I was like, gosh,
Yeah.
not the car, but it was the chair. What are some other, is there any other traditions that may be lesser known that you kind of like that maybe people don't realize it? I'd love the tradition, or I don't know if you call it a tradition, with the concession prices being as affordable as they are, but I think a lot of people know about that. I think it's nuts that you can go in there and $20 and just eat great. But
Mhm.
what's another tradition maybe that you like that maybe a little less uncommon, but you really still like?
So the other thing that jumps out to me is something that I feel like if I had to ballpark it, probably 80% of people that attend the Masters have no idea about. And that is the fact that you can get your picture, every patron, you can go get your picture in front of the clubhouse at Augusta National Golf Club, whatever day of the tournament it is that you go. You don't need a camera. You can go get your picture in front of the clubhouse. You just need to walk around the far side towards the par three course and then wrap your way around. And there's a line, and they have professional photographers who will take your picture, and they have ways to be able to. I'm not sure, I haven't been there in 10 years, so they may email it now, but in the past, they would give you a little card that was like the size of a credit card, had a barcode or a QR code on the back, and you could scan it when you got back home, and it would pull up, and you had this high definition, high resolution photo of you and your family or whoever you attended with right there in front of one of the most iconic buildings in the game of golf. And you have it right there in the founder's circle with the Augusta National, map of flowers, the U.S. Map there in yellow daisies, and it's such a cool tradition. But the handful of times that I've done it, you walk around the clubhouse and it might be a long line, but it might be 100 people. There's 40,000 people at the Masters every day of the tournament. And very few people know, because when it comes to Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so every day except the day of the par three tournament, very few people think to walk around that side of the clubhouse. So very few people, I feel like, realize that at no cost, they will take your professional photograph in front of the clubhouse, and you can get a copy of it for free.
That is awesome. What's your favorite place on the course there at Augusta National?
Um, I'd say probably 15 green is up there for me, and not necessarily the grandstands, from my past experiences. It's the spot, like 75 yards short, 50 to 75 yards short of the green, where you're short of the pond. You're looking back up the hill, that is a lot more uphill than people realize. Back up to where people are, players are hitting their second or third shots from. But you can see the approaches into the green, and you can see the slope of the green. For me, that's just one of the more alluring shots in just across the golf course, is that approach shot into 15. So that's one of my favorite spots. And then the first tee is my other favorite. And that goes back to one of my favorite memories personally on property at Augusta. In 2017, I was able to take my father. It was my last year as a PGA member. I knew my membership was going away at the time, so I didn't know if I'd ever go back. Was able to get a ticket for my father, and he and I went for the Sunday final round in 2017 when Sergio won. And we got in the gates first thing in the morning. We had our chairs all ready, and we were planning on making our way up to the 18th green. We are going to put our chairs in the 18th green. But as we got up the hill, we're standing in between the first tee box and the clubhouse, and we look to the right and we realize nobody is stopping by the first tee here. So we put both of our chairs down literally right on the rope at the first tee, even with the tee markers. Put our chairs down, walked around, had a phenomenal morning. And then around midday, we came back and sat down and watched the last 10 groups tee off, less than 10 feet from us. And that was just a really special memory. We ended up actually being visible on the TV coverage a number of times, which was neat. But being able to have that experience with my father was phenomenal there. That Sunday round.
That's awesome. I saw in one of your X posts that, and I didn't know this until I read it, that Augusta National was originally designed with a 19th hole.
It was. It was. It was originally designed with a 19th hole that was squeezed in between the ninth and the 18th greens. Alistair McKenzie, when he designed the course or originally kind of mapped out the course from an architectural standpoint, um, he included a 19th hole that was going to be designed and set up literally only to settle bets for members, to be able to settle bets for matches that end up halved at the end of the 18th hole. The tee box was going to be kind of short of the ninth green, kind of shortened to the right. If somebody's looking up the hill towards the ninth green, it was shortened to the right of the ninth green. And then the modern putting green today that's right outside the clubhouse was the green. So the actual tee box got created, the actual green got created, but that 19th hole never actually got used because the tee box ended up turning into the driving range for the first 25-ish years of the tournament. That gigantic field in between the ninth hole or the ninth green and the eighth tee box that today is just an open field. That was originally the driving range. So the driving range tee box was originally supposed to be the tee of that 19th hole, and it was going to be a short par three up to the what is today the putting green.
Very cool. Another
So
thing.
when people talk about a 19th hole today, they usually think about a bar. So when you think about Augusta National having a 19th hole, you don't realize that it was originally designed to actually have a literal 19th golf hole.
I think that is really cool. Another thing I didn't know that I want you to talk a little bit more about, that their Augusta National holes were, named after plant species on property, but they've actually changed some of the holes names on that. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, they, almost everybody that enjoys the game of golf and knows something about the Masters typically knows that the holes are all named after different plant species or species of flowers in many cases that can be found across Augusta National's property. And there are six. I had somebody remind me or correct me on X. I said there were five. There's actually six different holes that have had their names changed from what they were originally named in 1934 or 1933 when the club opened to what they are named today. So a couple different holes that have changed names. Nobody, or at least I'm not aware of, why the names have changed. But I do think it's interesting that a few of them have in fact actually changed names over the years.
Why do you think that they changed?
I really don't know. The changes would have taken place, but by my research, the changes would have taken place within the first 10 years or so of Augusta National being open. It opened in 1933, 10 to 12 years. It opened in 1933. We know what the holes were named at that time when the club opened and when the first Masters was played in 34. I used to own a pairing sheet from the Masters from the 1946 Masters. It was actually signed by Bobby Jones. It was a really neat piece of memorabilia that was in my collection a number of years ago. It's since found a new home, but the map of the course on that pairing sheet had the hole names on it as well. And those names do not match up with the original 1933, 1934 setup. So at some point there in the first 10 to 12 years, somebody decided to change a few of the holes. So it's an interesting little kind of factoid that not only are the holes named, but a few of them have actually changed over the years.
That's awesome stuff. All right, I'm going to ask a question that I'm curious if you know this answer to it. The gnomes, the garden gnomes there at Augusta National. Where did that come about, and why has that become a big thing? When did it first start?
It first started in 2016. That was the first year that the garden gnomes were a thing and actually put out on the market for patrons to purchase. And I have no idea where it originated from. I have a feeling it was just Augusta National, as they do each year, trying to create um, new items for patrons to be able to purchase. They were getting creative and they have a small and then a large version of the gnome every year that they're available for purchase. And it's just taken a life force of its own. It's turned into this phenomenon over the last 10 years. And there are very few of the 2016 gnomes that are still in existence. Um, and usually the value of them, because on the secondary market, the large version of the gnomes in the auction world, the large versions tend to sell for a significant amount of money. And the 2016, the first year, if you can somehow get your hands on one, typically those end up selling for 8, 9, 10 plus $1,000, because there are so few that are known to still exist that are in like new condition.
Now, do you have any of any of the gnomes? Are you a gnome collector?
I am not. I have not owned any of them. I have not purchased any of them, but I'd be lying if I said next Monday when I go, I I I I saw the one that's coming out with the umbrella that's like positionable to where it holds an umbrella. I told my wife, I was like, "You're gonna make fun of me, but I have to buy one of those gnomes. It's so cool looking." Like, for it to have a prop, that set it apart for me. I gotta get one for myself. And I admittedly have no desire to resell it. I really want one for myself.
I'm with you on that. I can't say that I've ever thought, I need a gnome. I need a master's gnome. But if I went, I saw it, I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. That would look good on my shelf over here,
Exactly. It's
right
it's gonna look
there.
really good in my office.
It would look fantastic. Now, what about, I know you like to collect some memorabilia items. Do you have any, what are some of your items you have from the masters that maybe you like?
You know, I most of what I gravitate to in my love of the history of the game, but specifically when it comes to collecting, most of my collection originates from Scotland. I tend to focus my collecting efforts on artifacts and memorabilia from the original three courses that hosted the Open Championship of St. Andrews, Prestwick, and Musselburgh. So most of what I own from a collectible and memorabilia standpoint are artifacts from the 1800s and early 1900s from one of those three, or have ties to one of those three courses. So I don't have a ton of masters related items, but one of the big things that I do have is again, I was fortunate to attend from 2012 through 2017, and I kept the ticket from each of those years. And I have a special frame that has custom matting that I had made that has all six of those tickets on it, or in it, I should say, in the frame. So that's a really nostalgic piece for me, that I really, really thoroughly enjoy. But admittedly, while most of my collection is centered around Scotland, uh, there's always the chance of something popping up that when you see it, you go, "I gotta have that." And a gnome is a perfect example, honestly. To your point, like if I wasn't going, would I seek one out? No, probably not. But if I'm going, it's really cool. Like I feel like I gotta have it if I can get one.
Yeah,
Um,
I can certainly understand that.
yeah.
If you could have any, let's think you could have any Masters memorabilia item, game used ball, flag, or anything. Let's say it just wasn't a price, something from the Masters in the history. What would be one thing that you would love to get?
That's a great question. I would probably go with something pretty unique here. And I would probably say, well, all right, I'll give you two answers. One that is something that I've hunted for a while, but eh, the second is just kind of the first thing that actually came to mind for me. So the item that I've been seeking out for a while, but I have yet to actually acquire is an original program from the inaugural 1934 Masters. There are very few that are known to still exist. Only a few dozen copies, I believe, are known to still exist, and they don't change hands very often. But I would really love to have. one of the original programs from the inaugural playing, because it wasn't called the Masters then. It was the Augusta National Invitational, and I knowing the caliber of players that played in that first playing, knowing the history of the membership that was outlined in that first program, and just knowing the contents of it, and obviously the significance to the history of the game. That would be really, really cool. On a lesser note, lesser kind of significance, I should say, I would love to just own one of the T markers. It's one of the most iconic and one of the most simple T marker designs, but that is just it's just so unique and so cool and so definitive to the Masters. I feel like the T markers at the Masters are almost as iconic as the wicker baskets of Marion Golf Club.
Mhm.
You see it and you know where you are. You see it, you know where it came from. So the T markers, that would be something cool to own one or a pair of. Not that I
That
expect it to happen, but that would be pretty neat.
no, that would be really cool. My first thought, if I was gonna choose one, I would wanna choose the ball Tiger Woods hit, the Nike ball where it hung on the lip of the cup before it fell right in.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember where I actually went to one of the rounds earlier in the week when it happened, so I remember where I was watching it happen, so I think something like that would be really, really cool. What
It would I would be curious to know, and if Steve Williams ever watches this podcast, comment underneath it, or tag me in Instagram or Twitter about this. I would love to know if he kept that ball separated, and if that ball, if Tiger actually has that somewhere, kind of as saved in his house or somewhere, or if that just got mixed in with the rest of his Nike balls and got lost to history. I'd be very curious about that.
that is, I'm gonna Google search some of that right afterwards because 'cause I'm now you got me curious thinking about that.
Yeah.
Um, Now do you have a favorite food item, there at the National that you like, or is it all the same to you?
I'm a very simple guy when it comes to food. Give me a glass of sweet tea and one of the pulled pork barbecue sandwiches, and I'm in heaven. I've never been an egg salad or pimento cheese guy. No disrespect to anybody that loves it. It's just not my taste, just not my style. I'm a simple guy. Just give me some barbecue and give me a sweet tea, and I'm good to go.
I'm looking forward to it like I'm gonna have it, but I wanna get one is I heard they're coming out with a Masters candy bar this year. It's
Yes, I read about that as well.
and I was like, "Gosh, I don't know why I wanna try it, but I just wanna try it." I think anything the Masters puts out, I wanna try it, and, like, I wanted to try the tomato pie last year. I have no idea if it was any good or not, but
I'm looking forward to trying one of the peach ice cream sandwiches because that's been a recent enough development that the last time I went in 2017, it wasn't around. So I'm looking forward to trying that.
well, I'm sure you'll get some good stuff. I do have to ask before we kinda let you go, when I was looking at one of your collectible items that's not Augusta National related, but I'm more interested actually probably in the journey you took to actually pick it up than to actually to get it was one of the title of the article, which I love, which is on Links Magazine, was "Finding Treasure: A Collector's Quest for Old Tom Morris Feathery." The feathery ball. Tell us a little bit about what that ball is, and then maybe about the journey you took to actually go get it.
Yeah, I last year I was fortunate to acquire through an auction overseas, over outside of London, a feathery golf ball made by old Tom Morris. Would have been made by him in either 1849 or 1850, give or take. And that's pretty specific in terms of the years for historical reasons, because those are the only years he would have made golf balls on his own. But I was fortunate to acquire that golf ball, and being that I acquired it from an auction house overseas, that means that I had to ship it from England all the way over here to the United States to Birmingham, Alabama, where I live. And At that time, in that moment, I just did not trust any sort of shipping institution to handle it with the care that it needed to be handled with. So I decided last minute, it was literally only 5 or 6 days after the auction. I called them and arranged for me to be able to pick it up in person. So on about 48 hours notice, I made sure my wife was okay with it. And then I booked a flight for myself and I flew from Birmingham up to Charlotte, Charlotte over to London. I got a rental car in London the following morning. I drove about 2 hours to the auction house and I picked it up. I was there for about 15 minutes, paid while I was there, drove right back to the airport, and I only had about a half hour to spare before my flight boarded to fly back over to the US. Touchdown in Charlotte, short connection before I flew back to Birmingham. And in total, I was gone for less than 30 hours from door to door, from leaving my house to walking back in my house. And I walked back in with the old Tom Morris Feathery, which is one of only 5 examples that are known to still exist of his golf balls.
Wow, that is awesome. I mean, I think the golf ball of Old Tom Morris is awesome, but the story to get it, and to do it, but, you know, you not even time to go play around the golf while you're there. You had to get and go. What
Yeah, I had worked out every little detail, every little intricate detail. I had mapped out 2, if not 3 different routes for my rental car to be able to drive to the auction house. I had plan A, plan B, and plan C for every step of the way, but I had a very short window to be able to make it work like it did.
now you had to drive on the other side of the road and all that fun stuff too, didn't you? Are they
Oh
on?
yeah.
I did that one time. I don't know if I could in Australia. I don't know if I could do that again. That would have made me nervous. Now, anywhere on the journey, did it ever get dicey? Did you ever get dicey where you'd get back in time, or did you have like a special case where you kept that ball locked up so no one would fall on it or anything crazy like that?
Yeah, so when we first landed in London, so my flight going over there, our flight landed and the gate wasn't ready. So we had to sit there for about 20 minutes before we could deplane. Now, thankfully, I had done again a lot of research, layers and layers of research before this, leading up to this trip. So the flight that I booked for myself, I booked it because the seat that I was able to get was closest to the door. It was only 2 rows away from the door that people were going to be deplaning from. So I knew I would literally be one of the first people off the plane, regardless of when it actually deplaned. So even though we were 20 minutes late, I had factored in a little bit extra time for the flight in case it was delayed or anything. And I had factored in about a half hour, 20 minutes of which got eaten up by just sitting on the tarmac. So there's 20 minutes going by. I'm twiddling my thumbs, going, faster and faster as time goes by, going, all right, let's go, let's go, let's go. And eventually got out. No big deal. I was fine from that point forward. But to your question about how I transported it, I did appreciate my good friend Tony Deere, who wrote that article for Links Magazine about my journey. He likened my trip to the scene in Ocean's 12 when the guys steal the Fabergé egg, and when the museum's trying to move the Fabergé egg, without you know, arising suspicion, they put it in a backpack, and it's just an average Joe that walks out of the museum with this, priceless artifact in his backpack. That's kind of what I felt like walking out of the auction house, walking out in a backpack with just a little container that had some bubble wrap in it that the golf ball was in, and I was on my way. And nobody knew what I had in there, obviously, but nobody would have known. Even the auction house, told you I spent about 15 minutes there. I gave a short history lesson to the auction house team about who Tom Morris was because they had no idea. They had no idea. So they didn't market the golf ball for golfers or the golf, collectible market. So I was fortunate to find it, in my research. But Yeah, it was interesting walking through the airport with that on my back, because I didn't have a check bag or anything like that, obviously, for a trip this quick. I just had my backpack with a notebook, some extra bubble wrap in case I needed it, and my laptop for work, so I worked on the plane while I was traveling. That was it.
There you go. Now I've got to ask, do you have what any other prize old Tom Morris collectibles or one that even trumps that? Because I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's definitely the coolest Tom Morris collectible. I do also have a photo of him that was signed by him during his life.
Yeah.
That's really near and dear to my heart. Really special item. To be able to have something that and now two items that he held with his own hands. It's really a it's a moving moment when you can tie yourself to a historical figure in the game in that way. Um, so the photo is really cool, but the other item that is kind of on that same tier as the golf ball doesn't have any ties to Tom Morris. It's got ties to the Rusacks Hotel in St. Andrews. It's a visitor's log from the hotel from the 1930s that has several dozen pages worth of entries, many with rather significant historical kind of ties. So I'm actually in the early stages of writing a book about that visitor's log and kind of telling all the stories of the more than 400 names that are found within it.
That's awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, you talked about that on the Whole Story podcast with Robbie and
Yep.
them. I would encourage people go to bestball.com, check out that particular podcast with John Morton on it. It was a fascinating podcast, great stuff. John, I appreciate your time tonight. Tell people where they can find you and what's the website for your company, your store, and what else you'd like to share.
Yeah. So you mentioned my handle on X earlier. It's at John Morton, John Morton, like the salt company, 215. It's the same handle on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. Feel free to shoot me a friend request. I accept all golfers. And my company's website is oldgreytoongolf.com, and that's spelled AULDGREYTOUN golf.com. But if you find me on any of those platforms on social media, you'll also find links to the website as well. So, yeah, feel free to interact with me. Share your history of the game as well with me. I always love talking about the history of the game. It's like I said earlier, that's my biggest passion.
Well, please, thank you again for your time. Please go check John's Instagram account or an X account out. There's a lot of great stuff, especially with the Masters going on. A lot of great stuff. So, John, thank you again for your time and for being on the Southern State of Golf podcast.